torture. Kind of. Torture. The action or practice of inflicting severe pain or suffering on someone as a punishment or in order to force them to do or say something. So, what did he do? Who's he? Dr. Yang Yongxin was not certified to administer electroshock therapy. So what's happening here? Well, we're going to start back in 1999 with Dr. Yang Yongxin. He's a doctor here in China, and in 1999 he was granted a wing in his hospital because he had noticed an uptick in his son's excessive gaming. And he was really concerned that he was unable to stop, and he would be doing this for hours and hours a day and would start prioritizing gaming over doing all of his schoolwork and other things that historically in China that you would always have done growing up, not gaming. And that's just the case everywhere. 2006, he finally got approval to open his first treatment center, his first standalone facility for treating what he called internet addiction. And one of his weird focuses was called brain waking, which is a medication rather than military-inspired discipline. In 2007, he got a lot of publicity for having a very favorable commercial go very popular on TV at the time. And his outreach by 2009, he had treated nearly 3,000 patients by this brain waking method. But however, reports started to kind of come out about these interesting side effects or the methods, questioning the validity of the methods. China's values as a whole, they're very logical. So how does someone end up so seemingly misguided? Well, let's look into it. This is the Chinese symbol of yin and yang. It represents peace and disorder. And you'll notice inside of the peace, the white, there is some disorder. And inside of the disorder, there is some peace. And the entire point is to find the balance of that, knowing you cannot have one without the other, and that to have one, you must acknowledge the presence and be aware that you will be filled with some. But in order to accept that, you have to accept it. I dropped a bottle. All right, Confucianism. I actually think I got it. All right. And then over here we have Taoism. Wait, no, that's not right. That's a different kind of soul searching. Taoism, there we go. So, Taoism and all of these kind of represent social harmony, respect for authority, and the importance of community over the individual. And that one's kind of important because China really has a history of kind of focusing more on public appearance and the community than it is over, the individuality of a single person. Buddhism. The traditional Chinese Buddhism, which is followed by about 33% of the population, and that's today's numbers, follows this concept of karma. You put good karma, good energy out into the world, and you will receive good karma, good energy back. And this is a form of moral development. The more karma you have, the more good energy you have, the more you will develop morally. Logical. Suffering is also a big part of Buddhism because it shows to suffer, it is a necessary path to enlightenment or to moral improvement. And that goes back to our yin and yang. Inside of the yin, you will always have suffering. And inside of the yang, you will always have pleasure. You cannot have one without the other. And knowing that, acknowledging that you will have both is the ability to grow. Yang. That's him again. Look at him on the TV there. So if we take his experience growing up in China and seeing the changes that China went through in the 70s with their rapid expansion. And China didn't get the internet until 1994. That's a lot later, almost a decade later than a lot of other Western countries. And so the internet was more developed at that point. Still nowhere near what it is today, but think back versus the internet in the 70s, which was basically only for scholars. It was used, there was only a couple thousand connections in 1980 in the United States alone. Just a couple thousand, and those were almost entirely universities to access scholarly texts. Not exactly something that a teenager would want to do after school, is go access more school, right? Who wants to do that? But By the time it came introduced in China in 1990, there was already a large gaming environment out there, and it was just thrust into them at once, which is a huge culture shock, and there was no way for anyone to prepare for it. So we take these classical views of Confucianism, you know what I mean, I said it earlier, we're good. All right, and then take Taoism, the correct one, and then we take Buddhism. And you kind of take all three of those and you like muddle them around a little bit, and then you output the Chinese ideology. And that suffering is essential to make the most good out of us. So that small suffering is needed for big enlightenment after. A suffering of a few could make the improvement worth it. You know, it's like that old saying, the ends justify the means. Whether that's true, that's up to you to decide.